Hello! Today's video is a usage guide for the AWS Glacier service. Glacier is a cloud storage solution offered by Amazon as part of the Amazon Web Services and can be used to store big amounts of data on Amazon servers. The biggest selling point of Glacier is probably its pricing, as the costs can be a fraction of what you would pay to store the same amount of data with a more mainstream storage provider such as Dropbox or OneDrive. On the flip side, your data is not readily available and it does take a while to retrieve it. Let's now log in to the AWS console at console.aws.amazon.com. I'm already logged in, so we're good to go. The first thing we're going to do is register to the AWS notification service. The reason we need it is that, as I said, data retrieval with Glacier is not immediate. So obtaining our data back from the server requires two steps. The first step is retrieval. We send a request that specifies the file we want to download. This request sets in motion the Glacier retrieval mechanism, which copies the file from Glacier itself to S3 storage. It will only be stored in S3 temporarily. But while it's there, we can perform the second step, which is the download from the S3 temporary storage to our computer. The thing is that the first step, the retrieval step, can take up to a few hours. So we want to be notified when it's done. That's why we're going to register to the notification service that will send us an email once our data is ready to download. So under Services, under Application Integration, let's choose Simple Notification Service. This is the AWS Notification Service, abbreviated as SNS. I'm going to click here on Start with an Overview. And as we can see in the diagram below, the notification always starts with a publisher. That would be Glacier in our case. It then notifies the topic, linked to it in SNS, and the SNS topic in turn notifies its subscribers, which can be, among other things, an email address. So let's click on Topics. And let's create a new topic. As the type, I'm going to choose Standard. And let's give it a name. I call my topic Glacier topic. Great, let's create a topic. And we now want to create a subscription to this topic. As the protocol, I'm going to choose email. And then I type in my email. And let's create a subscription. We need to wait for about a minute for a confirmation email. And we need to approve it. And we're told that the subscription was confirmed. With that out of the way, we can move on to the Glacier service itself. In the storage category, let's choose S3 Glacier. The first thing we're going to do is to create a vault. We need to choose a region, and usually it's best to choose the one that's closest to your location. To change to a different region, choose one from the drop-down list. Let's now name our vault. I'm going to call it Example Vault. We need to link this new vault to the SNS topic we just created. So I'm going to choose Enable Notification and use an existing SNS topic. We need to provide the ARN of the topic. It appears in the confirmation email, so I'll copy it from there. And I want to be notified on the completion of the two types of retrieval jobs. And let's submit to create the new vault. And we can see our example vault on the list. The vault we just created is sort of a storehouse. It's made to store data, but currently it doesn't contain any data. The thing is that we cannot upload files to the vault directly from the AWS console. So we're going to have to do it with the AWS command line interface, or CLI for short. The CLI is text-based, but using it is pretty straightforward. To get started with it, open aws.amazon.com/CLI. And here we can find links to install the CLI on Windows, macOS, or Linux. To install on a Windows machine, just click on the Windows option and an MSI installation file will be downloaded. To install on a Linux machine, just run these commands from your terminal while in your home folder. Notice that this will install CLI version 2. In the past, AWS used CLI version 1, which is still somewhat supported, but you should really go with version 2 unless you have a really good reason not to. To make sure that the AWS CLI was successfully installed, just open your terminal and run AWS-version. You should get something similar to this, which means that the CLI is installed. And we can see that I am running version 2 indeed. Now that we have it installed, we need to configure it, which is as simple as typing AWS configure. And we see that we need to provide an AWS access key ID. So how do we get that? Let's get back to the AWS console. I need to click on my username, then click on my security credentials. And here we need access keys. Let's create a new access key and download it. As you can see, it comprises two parts: AWS access key ID and AWS secret key. It is sensitive information, so make sure you don't share it with the wrong people. Let's copy the key ID and paste it in the terminal. And let's do the same thing with the secret access key. And now we need to specify our default region. I'll use the same one we used for our Glacier vault. And in the top I can see my region, and if I click on it, I can see its code. As for the output format, I'll go with JSON. And we're done. The CLI is installed and configured. To keep things as simple as possible, I'm going to stick to the CLI version 2 documentation, to which I leave a link in the video description below. Now, the AWS CLI supports a whole lot of commands, but this web page is about Glacier, so we only see the commands that pertain to Glacier. Among these commands, we have the upload archive command. And this is the command we will use to upload the file to the vault. I already prepared a few files that I want to upload, so let's change directory to the folder that contains these files. And I have here an image file and two text files. Let's now get back to the CLI documentation and see how we can use the upload archive command to upload them to the vault. Let's start by copying the example. I'm going to change the name of the file to the file that I want to upload. And we also need to specify the name of our vault. And let's upload it. And we get this JSON formatted text with some details about the new archive we just uploaded. The archive ID is going to be useful later on when we want to retrieve the file. So I'll create a new text file and save it there. And let's also upload the two text files, but I'll also add a description for them. If we get back to the list of the vaults, it's still going to show that the vault doesn't contain any archives. And that's the price you have to pay when using this service. Nothing is immediate, and every operation takes a long time. So I'm going to stop this recording and continue tomorrow to give the vault enough time to update. Okay, so today is tomorrow, at least from yesterday's perspective. So Glacier had its time to update, and if we take a look at our vaults now, we can see that it contains something. Specifically, we can see that it contains 3 archives, and we can also see the size of the vault. It also shows when it was last updated, and that's when the upload to the vault actually took place. So once again, if you're looking for something that's very responsive, you might not be too happy with Glacier. Anyway, let's now see how we download our files back from the cloud. Again, we're going to use the Glacier documentation inside the CLI documentation. And the command we're going to use now is initiate job. And as we can see in the description, this operation initiates a job, which can be an archive retrieval or a vault retrieval. As we're just about to see, downloading a file requires knowing its archive ID. And that's why I saved the archive IDs of the 3 files I uploaded in a dictionary file. But let's assume for a minute that I didn't save these IDs, or that I lost the file that holds them. Does it mean that I lose access to everything on the vault? No, it doesn't mean that. It does mean, however, that we need to somehow find them. And that's exactly the role of Glacier inventories. Every non-empty vault has its inventory. And inside this inventory, you can find the archive ID of every file stored in the vault. The flip side of using the inventory, instead of managing the IDs ourselves, is that it requires to retrieve the inventory. An additional delay of a few hours. But let's download the inventory to see how it works. Let's scroll down to the examples. And here we can see the command we need to run to get the inventory of the vault. Let's fix the name of the vault. Now, the text within the single brackets, the part that's colored in blue in my terminal, is actually JSON formatted text. If you're running this command in a Linux machine, or a Mac for that matter, you can just go ahead and run the command as it is. On Windows, you have to prepend every quotation mark within the JSON with a backslash. And now we can run the initiate job command. The Glacier service is now extracting our vault's inventory from the actual Glacier storage to temporary storage in S3, where we will be able to download it from. This retrieval is going to take a while, so I'm going to stop the recording and I'll be back when it's done. Okay, it's a few hours later and I'm back. I got this email and this is the sign that the inventory was retrieved and is ready to be downloaded. As we said, the file was copied from the Glacier storage to S3, and that's how it's available to download. But this is only temporary. Once you get the email, you only have about 24 hours to actually download the inventory. To download, we're going to use a new command. So let's get back to the CLI documentation. And the command we're going to use is get job output. Let's scroll down to the usage example. And let's start by copying it. Let's fix the vault's name. And we also need to specify the job ID. This can be found in the email we got, so let's copy it from there. Notice that the command also includes a name for the output file. And this name includes file extensions. Inventories use the JSON format, so I leave the extension as it is, but I rename the output file to example vault inventory. And let's run the command. And we can see status 200, which means that the download was successful. And if we list the files now, we can see that we now have example vault inventory.json. I just move it to our uploads folder. I use Visual Studio Code to explore its contents. And we can see that the archive list contains 3 files, which is to be expected as we uploaded 3 files to Glacier. And we can see that each entry has its archive ID. And a description. Notice that the first file doesn't have a description as I didn't provide one when I uploaded it. The other 2 entries do have descriptions, and I recommend that you always provide a description when uploading and include the extension of the file you upload. This way, if you're ever going to use your inventory, you can easily recognize your files and know their type before retrieving them. Let's take a look at the dictionary file I created myself. And we can see that the archive ID in this file is identical to what's provided by the inventory. Okay, we're ready to move on to retrieving the files themselves, and to do that we're going to use initiate job again. And let's copy it again. Let's fix the vault's name. As for the job parameters, we need to replace inventory retrieval with archive retrieval. And we also need to provide the archive ID. Let's copy the archive ID. I'll copy it from the inventory, but you can of course copy it from the file you manage yourself. Let's also add a description. And since I'm on Windows, we need to prepend every quotation mark within the JSON with backslash. And let's run the command. Let's now run the command for the two text files. And Glacier is retrieving the files. Once again, it's going to take a few hours, so I'll stop the recording and I'll be back when it's done. Okay, I'm back and I got 3 notifications email specifying the job ID for each of the files I retrieved. Just like before, they'll be available for about 24 hours from the time you get the email. Notice that each email specifies a job ID, so we can know which job holds which file. To download the files themselves, we're going to use once more the getJobOutput command. Let's copy the example. Let's fix the vault's name. And just like we did with the inventory, we need to provide the job ID, which we can copy from the email. I'll start with the ID of the job that retrieved the image file. We also need to specify the name of the output file, including its extension. And let's run the command. And we get status 200, which means that the download was successful. And if we list the files, we can see the file we just downloaded from the AWS Glacier. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.